Hello, and welcome to In Bed with Books, the podcast where we talk about smutty fantasy with each other and with you. My name is Melissa.
And I'm Bethany.
And where else can you find us, Bethany?
You can find us in a few places. On our website, inbedwithbookspod.com, and also on Instagram at inbedwithbookspod. We also have a Discord, which you can follow in the link in our bio.
And then if you go to the description box below, check out those links and you can find us anywhere else.
And what are we talking about today, Melissa?
Let's find out.
All right. Hello.
Hello.
We are back.
Yeah. How are you today?
I'm doing well. No, I'm tired, but good. It's been a good week.
Nice. Yeah.
I like reading a good book. It makes the week better.
It does. It does. I don't need, just work was honestly kind of shitty this week, but reading this book made a big difference.
Made it better, huh? Yeah. My Christmas is not out yet.
Oh.
That was supposed to be on the docket this weekend, so we need to get a tree and things, and then I can get my wreath up and all of my ornaments. So I'm excited.
Nice.
In our new apartment.
Yeah.
Got Bunny on my lap.
Oh.
She won't leave me alone. What did I tell you the other day? I was like, I had to kind of like lock her out because now I can do that now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Close the door. And I'm like, she just won't leave me alone. And Milo's like, you're going to miss that. And I'm like, shut up.
She's never going to die. She's going to live forever.
Yeah.
It's a big if she dies.
Yeah. And I'm like, how could you say such a thing? I mean, we talk about her dying all the time. And to the point now where we're like, I mean, I don't think we'll feel it now. So
No.
Just kidding.
It'll at least be, you'll have mentally prepared for it.
Yeah, that's the hope, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, your week's good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, work was just busy. It wasn't so much that it was like a bad week.
Yeah.
It's just the beginning of the month. So.
Yeah. Get it out.
Yeah.
Get the yawns out.
Oh, no.
I know.
That one felt deep. I felt that one in my gut.
Yeah. It's my mommy's birthday today.
Oh, nice. Happy birthday, Mom.
Yes. She doesn't listen to this, but
yeah,
that's just fine. But I've realized I have lots of friends now that like listen to the podcast, which is always exciting.
Yeah.
One of them now being like my sister, because now
we pulled her into the darkness with us.
We have my sister, which during the pandemic, because she does my hair and I go to see her once a year. I go and get like my hair dyed because it like takes all day. And she has like four small children. And I remember telling her about ACOTAR because I was reading them at the time and I was just like, I couldn't not think about it ever. And I was like telling her about it and I was like, you should read it. And she's like, I can't read. I have no time to read. And I'm like, yeah.
And now she read this book twice.
She did. So she was recommended to it by our friend. And she's like, she messaged me a screenshot of the podcast episode of Shadow and the Ember and was like, I've read it twice. And I'm now reading From Blood and Ash.
Yeah.
And I've pre-ordered A Light in the Flame or whatever, because this was like a week before it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God. And anyways, she got the book. She finished it before I did.
Mm-hmm.
We saw each other on Thanksgiving and she was like, I want to go. I was like, I have so many theories. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I'm on chapter 3. I'm so sorry. I'm such a slow reader. and she was already like reading it on her second read. So I was like, how do you do that? I was like, you're nuts.
Insanity.
But she was like, what did she say? She was like, oh, I've been home because they were like sick. And she's like, and I've been like ignoring my children or something like that. It's the only way. Anyway. No, yeah. So it's exciting. And then I have this gal at my work who's now has read it. She finished it before me and was like, you need to finish it. That's your homework. I was like, okay. And then every time she come into work and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just at this point. And she's like, so it's just been like, that's been fun. It's always fun when you're like a new book release comes out and you have all of these people that are like, also excited about it.
Yeah.
You're part of the, what is that called? It's the buzz.
Yeah.
Of something new happening. Yeah.
Part of the big conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know any of my friends that have read this so far,
Mm-hmm.
but to be fair, I don't know a lot of people that read fiction like this. So
yeah,
that's why I do it so hard, because I have to do it for me and all of my imaginary friends.
Yeah. And me.
And me. Yeah. Well, you. Yes.
Yes.
I'm trying to like think of anything else just to like do an intro, because we've gotten into a nice group. I can't think of anything else.
No, I think we should get started.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So first thing, this was my favorite book so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I say that every single time.
Like favorite book of like the podcast of the series. Okay.
Potentially, it's like top 3 for the podcast.
Right.
And again, we say that all the time.
Yeah.
But this might have this was just so good. Mm-hmm. It was so good. And it gave us exactly what we asked for the last time we read Armentrout on the podcast.
Yeah.
Which was anal.
Yes.
And we will be talking about that later.
Yes.
Yeah, I love Poppy, or sorry, not Poppy. I love Sera so much.
Mm-hmm.
I love Nyktos and her relationship. I love the book so much.
I know. Well, it had a lot of good plot as well.
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like Armentrout is, I mean, I've only read From Blood and Ash, which is the same universe. It is her first high fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like she is good at plot and systems and like
sex.
Well, like I'm like magic and like working out like plot devices in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, yes, she is good at sex,
but also like how it all fits together.
And and then I was thinking of it too, and I was like, I was like not getting tired of it, but just like noticing that like, oh, this is like both Poppy and Sera are learning it with us. That's kind of like her method of like showing it to us. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of like, that's kind of her like way of getting the plot, not the plot, but like the world like downloaded for us is like the dialogue. And so I felt like she did a really good job with this one, because I felt like the last one, or the first book, yes, like we get like a lot of learning a bit more about what was it? The place she's from.
Lysania?
Yeah, Lysania. Like, and then the Elysium, things like that, like kind of getting introduced to it. But this one really felt like we got like it upgraded. And now we like really understand the politics of all the gods. We're like going to different places in Elysium. And like, so I think it like really felt a little bit more like, okay, now we're here. And we're here to stay. I think a lot of that less about the rot and more about like Colas.
Yeah. Which is still technically about the rot.
Yes. Oh, it's all about the rot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think part of that, like Nyktos kind of points out, because she's like, well, he doesn't even tell me things. And Nyktos is like, did you ask?
Yeah.
Did you ever ask for these things to be explained to you?
Yeah.
And so it's like a big mood shift for her from book 1 to this book, because in the beginning, that's all it actually had to be, was her dealing with the rot. And that's what she had to tell herself, even though she didn't want to kill him.
Yeah.
And so this time around, she's learning more because she's actively asking for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she knows she wants to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though there's complications in the way now, but
yeah,
in terms of cliffhangers, this was not the most stressful for me.
really.
And that is a compliment to her, because sometimes cliffhangers are so stressful that like I can't do anything, I can't read anything without thinking about it for like a few days. And this time I have this like strange sense of calm. And I think it has everything to do with those last few lines where she was like, I see the white wolf. He looks kind of silver. It's Ash. And you're like, okay, she's gonna be okay.
So there's some semblance of hope. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also like, we know that they survive long enough to have children.
Yes.
And that they are just in stasis in the main series. I think that is one thing that I really like about like a prequel series coming out in tandem with a main series.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when we find out that Eos died, we knew immediately that she was about to come back to life, because she is the goddess of love or the primal of love in the main series.
Yeah.
Or like when Reaver was injured, we knew that she was going to bring him back. And so like, they're not so much for the shock value as they are to show that like she is progressing as a person. And I like that.
Yeah.
Yes. So I like that we have some, like, we know that it's going to be okay because they have 2 children. They are in stasis together. It is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, yes.
Okay. So,
okay. Real quick.
Yes.
We both have a few theories, right?
I kind of, but you know me, they're not well thought out. They're just thoughts.
Same. That's all a theory is.
Okay.
When it comes to books, I should say. And so that's kind of like where like I'm so glad that she gave us some stuff where it's like, obviously Eos is going to be okay, because she's primal of love.
Yeah.
She's in the future. But then there's like certain things around like the prophecy and certain other behaviors that haven't quite been answered to yet.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, let's discuss that. Give me some of yours.
Okay.
I really have a couple. So some is a big word, but.
Yeah. So the only thing I wrote down was, because this whole thing about the Cardia,
right?
Yeah, that.
Yeah. I don't know the words until I see them again in italics. I just looked it up a few minutes ago.
Yeah. It's here. It's coming. Okay. So this is a very romantic theory. And you'll probably be like, oh no, it can't because of this, because you have all of this like library in you. But I was like, I really want to kind of like this. So the embers that are in her are his Cardias.
I don't know about his Cardias, but that is my theory, is that either he's going to get the embers back, or not to be like also romantic on main with you, but that, okay, so there's this line that Delphi has where he's saying about like the embers, like he believes love is the only thing stronger than the embers.
Mm-hmm.
And by this point I had already kind of been thinking it, but I'm wondering if how much he wants to love her and how much he should love her is just going to be enough for him to basically like regrow his Cardia.
Oh, yeah.
So like maybe he'll get the embers back and it'll heal him because it's the embers like of life. Or just because of like universal forces that are technically out of everyone's control, just how much he like it just like burst through and he's able to love her.
Yeah, so that was kind of the basis of my theory, which was there's this big conversation, at least in the first half of the book, that he is constantly wanting her to value her life. She knows she's going to die.
Yep.
Life and love, love is life. Yep. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm thinking. Like they are kind of almost synonymous with each other, is the cardia and the embers of life. And so there's going to be some kind of exchange that happens, right? And I do think like that's what you're kind of referring to as well. I just put life equals love and love is living. And which brings me to my next I don't want to say issue, but like it's just not really been made a lot of sense to me, which is, what is Nyktos doing if he's not in love?
Yeah.
I'm just so confused.
See, that's why I'm like, okay. I think that's on purpose because I think we're supposed to like, it's supposed to be really jarring. It's like, oh my God, he gave up his ability to love.
Right.
But I think what we're going to find out is that what they believe the cardia is actually like doing might not be exactly what it is.
Right.
So that's why I'm thinking like maybe it is so powerful that he will realize that he loves her.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing is like, without the cardia there, if someone were to be like, I wish that I was able to love you, then they just would. So like, because she kind of also has that dilemma or that like mental hitch where she's like, but he cares about everybody. He cares so hard.
But
so like, what is actually
what's
actually gone wrong? Yeah.
Between caring about this person and then what he feels for her.
Yeah. And so like at face value, it's just the thing that the fates used, the RA used so they could weaken the primals.
Yeah.
But like an actual like practical lived experience, what is it doing genuinely? Because it seems an awful lot like he loves her.
Exactly. Like I'm like, what? I was like, what would if he had his cardia? If he had his cardia, what would be different?
Yeah.
Other than like choosing literally, no, yeah. What would be different?
Because in the middle of battle, he's searching for her. When it comes down to like her life being threatened, he almost kills Delphi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And he like when he fucks her, he's like, I've never felt anything like this before.
Yes. Yes.
Which she had expressed in her thoughts when they were fucking is like, oh, it's different now. This was different this time.
Like there's got to be something about them being fated for each other that's gonna like overpower the like lack of cardia or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
or whatever cardia is like not what it is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Those are our theories, everybody.
I have another one.
Yes.
It's kind of fucked up. I think potentially Colas could ascend her. Because it needs to be a primal that loves you.
And Satoria's in there.
Yep. And he's realized it. He very clearly accepted that at the last minute.
Satoria is the embers.
No.
No? No, I'm saying that she carried him with her, didn't it? Wasn't that the plot?
Well, no, Satoria and the embers came separately. He put both of them. Athos put both of them in the bloodline separately, but yeah.
So, okay. So
that's the thing is if he drains her to take the embers, then he's gonna kill her, meaning he'll also kill Satoria. Yeah. So Satoria is the like failsafe.
Yes. So, confirm for me the plot.
Okay.
Which was that I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. The whole scheme was that Colas, okay.
Do I need to get out my whiteboard for the names?
Maybe not the names, but like I'm going to approach this backwards. Satoria is inside of her. She has Satoria's soul.
Mm-hmm.
There's that moment when she kills the Draken,
Mm-hmm.
and Satoria is smirking.
She's like, she can like feel the rage of like Satoria. Yeah.
And at that moment, there was a part of me that thought that Colas and Satoria were in cahoots with this plan. Now,
Okay.
hear me out.
Yeah.
At the time. And of course, we then learn Ates is like all like part of it. So I thought all of this like scheme was like partly to like get her to get the embers, whatever. I don't know. So then I learned at the very last scene that Satoria is angry at him. And that anger that was projected, because I thought that's what the smirk meant, was like, we've got him kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end I learned that Satoria's fucking batshit angry at Colas.
Yeah.
Because she's like, you're gonna kill me again.
Mm-hmm.
Because he kills her once.
That's part of the thing, is like we don't actually know the truth about what happened between him and Satoria.
Right.
Because we've got the myth, and then we've got kind of like her musings about what potentially happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because she doesn't really connect with Satoria the way that she connects with like the Embers. The first time we feel her as this separate entity is when she kills the Draken, Thad. And I am curious to see what's going to happen with Thad, because he did call her my Elisa.
Mm-hmm.
As like after he came back, and he had his eyes flash blue. And so I'm wondering if he's going to betray Atez, or if okay, I've got theories about that. But yeah. So we don't really fully know what happened between him and Satoria. So maybe they were actually lovers.
Right.
And it's just been like through time and everything, it's been kind of watered down to primal terrifies puny mortal, you know?
Right.
Or maybe, so like all the time in Greek myth, like gods that were rejected by women would lash out. So maybe she didn't just run in fear at seeing death, but rather was like, you're disgusting, fuck you.
Yeah.
And then left.
Yeah.
And then he killed her. Because the myth says she jumped from the cliffs, but she said, would you kill me again?
Yeah.
Which means he fucking did it.
Right.
Nobody's that angry after they've jumped off a cliff. They're sad at themselves. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't die willingly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, so what was Colas's plot? He used Ates to get her to heal Thad.
So he knew that she had the embers, and I think he wanted to see that how far along she was with like
the culling and stuff.
No, I guess not the culling, but like how powerful they were. He wanted to make sure that she was like training them, quote unquote, to try to like she couldn't get behind you, so she took the first thing. Yeah. How far along she was with like retraining the embers for doing what they usually do.
Mm-hmm.
And so like bringing back a Draken is actually huge.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we've heard previously, is technically they shouldn't be able to bring them back, but because she's got the embers of life, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And then. Okay. It's so fresh that it's almost like kind of a jumble.
It feels like I feel like Megamind.
It's such a big book.
Yes.
And there's
There's not like a wasted page.
Like what like when I was like, oh, you were like, oh, that scene with anal, and I was like, oh, my favorite scene was like the one where he like makes her say,
Dominates
I
her.
want to be dominated. And you were like, that's the same scene. And I'm like, oh. Because I'm like, they're all like, there's so many scenes.
Yes.
Not only sex, but also just like so many scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I feel like all of her books are like this. I think the first one could arguably be the From Blood and Ash. And
Yeah.
the first one, even the first one, Shadow and the Ember, could arguably be the most easy to like, for my brain to kind of like carve out like everything that happened in a cohesive way.
There's a lot of moving parts with this one.
Yeah, she always has like a lot of moving parts and a lot of characters and a lot of different scenes to accomplish what she wants, rather than like one big scene that you can kind of be like, and then this happened, and I don't know, like that's kind of like,
yeah, it's not like a big scene where it's just like drops.
Yeah,
it's like they open up to each other over time.
Yeah,
we kind of get the inklings of, oh, what did he sacrifice over time?
Which I've described.
I'm sorry, do you want to help her?
Oh my god, Bunny, she's so old. Oh my god.
Sorry.
Okay. Oh my god, Bunny. She's so sad. She's so unbrave, poor thing. Oh my gosh. Anyways, which I've said in our death episode, which was her writing. That's how she accomplishes that, is that you get these like little snippets of like him opening up to her, him like her kind of opening up to him, but it's not done in like one cohesive like scene. And so then it does feel like it happens almost inside out, because it's like this implicit like learning of how they're like growing together, which I really like. It just feels,
it's nice, like it feels a little bit
so much more raw.
Yeah, and it feels a little bit like natural the way that it happens, because you don't have a revelation about like a big personal thing and then see all the pieces. It's like all the pieces have been piecing together, and then you put them together and you're like, holy shit, and then you look at them and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So it's not that one day she realizes she loves him, and then it goes through all of the like, she has her own personal issues that she's got to deal with, and the big betrayal, which I do want to talk about, the big betrayal and all of that. Like, she realizes that the reason she responded the way that she did was because she loved him, and she couldn't have realized she loved him before that because of the way that she was brought up. She didn't understand what love was.
Yes.
So yeah, it happens like in this very natural kind of like, Armentrout definitely understands like the mental space of her characters.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing that more and more, specifically in this universe. Like, it's really easy to look across different, like I told you, I've read her one of her first series, which was the like Origins and like the Lux series. It's about aliens. It's fun. It's romance. And we could compare Katie in that book to Poppy and Sera here, and obviously they're going to be different because it is entirely different universes. Katie in the original, in that older series, is from Earth. She's on Earth. It is like a different universe. It's revealed that they've got aliens and everything. But to see two women in the same, almost identical situations, but to be so vastly different and to have such vastly different mindsets is so, it's expertly done.
Yeah. I also really liked part of that, like before the betrayal, which was that she really wanted to be, she learned that she really wanted to be the consort. And she wanted to like care about these people, and
she got really hung up on our people.
And I liked that a lot.
I mean, let's just go through some of the tropes that we've got here. We've got arranged
Yes.
marriage, enemies to
Yes.
lovers, enemies, well, friends to lovers to enemies to friends to lovers
Yes.
to soulmates.
Yes.
Yes. We've got betrayal, cheating, the cheating trope.
Yes.
Which I mean, asterisk next to that one, but God, what else do we have? There were others. There was definitely others that I was picking up, and I was like, she puts them together so well.
Mm-hmm.
Because it didn't even occur to me until partway through that I was like, oh my God, this is like an arranged marriage trope. But it just feels so like, because they don't start out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seemed like something they both kind of decided.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that they still needed to do it, but they also let themselves have feelings along the way.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, it also got me thinking because we were just talking a second ago about the potential of them being like fated for each other, like soulmates, heartmates. So Ates, we've got a pronunciation guide. Let's look real quick and see where the emphasis is supposed to be.
I can't remember the book what I was listening to. I think it was Ates. Ates.
Ates, yep. Okay,
Okay.
Ates. Okay. So Ates, his betrayal, that's one of the ones where I'm like, I'm glad that we don't necessarily know what's happened to him between this series and the next.
Yes, because it
Because I
leaves
am
a lot of
inclined,
like questions.
yeah, I'm inclined to think that he's not entirely bad.
Yeah.
Um, Only because he has a couple of times made comments about like remembering Athos.
Yeah.
But the way that he spoke about like him and Colas, and so it's like because Colas was there and Colas was talking about how like Athos was always jealous and he was jealous that Mycella loved him instead of like
Mm-hmm.
himself. Um, and then Ates says this comment about like it makes sense that he would put Satoria's soul in her to protect the embers. He
Mm-hmm.
would definitely do something snide or whatever like that. And I'm thinking like that we obviously don't necessarily want to believe their portrayal of Athos,
Mm-hmm.
but it does raise to question beyond just like he could have done anything to ensure that Sera went to Nyktos. So why was it consort? Because it also like at first when we were first told that she was going to be the consort, it was like, oh yeah, it's like when a king has a mistress,
Yeah.
where it's like she's got a higher status in the court, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's not really like she doesn't really hold any power. But through this book, what we learned is that the consort actually has an immense amount of power.
Mm-hmm.
So why make her consort?
Why Nyktos chose her as consort?
Why did Athos? Because Athos and his was the one who made the deal with
Right.
her like ancestor. And so why did Athos set that up? Not just because he could have chosen any other way for them to make her his property so that he would eventually get the embers.
Yeah.
Because it's also like, okay, so we've got with Colas and like the primal of life stuff is that there's chosen, and the chosen aren't consorts, but they still like go to Elysium and they become like members of the court and everything.
Right.
They very easily could have just said make her a chosen of primal of death, because he had to have known too that he would have had to have drained her of blood, which
Mm-hmm.
means there has to be some reason why. Like, is it just that he didn't anticipate Nyktos taking out his cardia, and so he
Right.
assumed he'd be able to ascend her?
Mm.
Or is there like some kind of like some fact that we don't know about what Athos was expecting, like what his actual plan was?
Yeah.
Because it just feels like there's any other way that he could have ensured that Nyktos got the embers from her.
Yeah.
but making him marry a mortal.
Yeah, like I feel like Athos sees something in her that they don't yet. There's still kind of a missing piece, I feel like.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that has to go back to them. Like, how does he feel so hard about her if he doesn't have his cardia?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I firmly believe that they're heartmates and that he just hasn't been able to feel it yet.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be something there, like it's just like a cog is going to click in his place perfectly and it's all going to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's like definitely pieces of Athos's plan that are missing. And then he's dead, so we can't even like go to him for answers because he's not like in stasis. Because when it was like Nyktos, like, oh, we just woke him up from stasis for 5 minutes and got a few facts. But Athos is gone. So that's not even an option.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yes.
I know. There's so many questions.
Yes. Yes.
But I thought we could like kind of go through characters.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
Yes.
Just to kind of cover any ground. Ios's story. Then we have
Beautiful.
yes. Then we have Hector and Rain and Bella. Am I missing anyone?
Scion.
And Rehar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I will mention Cars. I will also mention Reaver and Jadis. I love sidekicks. I love animal, like in not even animal necessarily, but like fantastical sidekicks, which Reaver really felt like with Sera. And I love that so much because it really brings, there is something to be said, and we need more of it in fantasy and fantasy romance, I think, is the Disney movie like sidekicks. Like I really felt it in Crescent City with Lahaba and Syrinx. Like there's just something really not innocent, but the childlike essence that like I think we all kind of want to feel when there's such high stakes. Like it's such a good balance.
It goes back to like Joseph Campbell, literally like so in part of the hero's journey, he talks about like different character tropes that we'll meet.
Yeah.
And one of them is the like animal sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
And so like Gurgi is one.
Yep.
Yeah. Going back to our Christ-like figures.
Yes.
Let's see. Like I think the hobbits technically qualify in certain like in within the fellowship.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I mean, just name off like a big epic and you'll find one. Pegasus. Game of Thrones. Yeah. We've got the wolves and the dragons. Because they serve like more of a purpose than just the pets, like specifically like Ghost and Nymeria. They serve huge purposes.
Yeah.
Because you can have animals without them being like the sidekick.
Yeah.
But having like an animal or childlike sidekick is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think we need more of that in books. Like Poppy didn't really have one.
No, she was really lonely there for a while.
Yeah. Someone that kind of sees them through like what is it? What's his name? Mushu.
Yes, Mushu.
Like he's there from the beginning. She didn't like find him. He found her.
It's like,
and then
like the Jiminy Cricket character.
Yes, Jiminy Cricket. Yeah. Some of my favorites are Sebastian. Some of my favorites are Miko and
I fucking love Miko.
And the hummingbird.
Yes, Flit.
Yes, Flit.
Their dynamic too is just so perfect.
So good. It's so good.
Yes. I actually was watching that the other day while I was working. And I love that movie so much. And it's so bad. It's so inaccurate.
I know. But it's such a good movie. Like on its own. Like
so much.
I know.
But it's because I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I think the magical element of that is partly why, like that grandmother Willow, you've got that like
Yes.
sage figure. It's a very classic tale. What the
Yeah.
version that Disney has done is a very
Yes.
classic tale in that way.
Yes.
Um, okay, so you did get me thinking, do we want to talk about the prophecy?
I would like you to talk about the prophecy because I need to understand it better.
Okay. Do you
I'm,
want to
this
do
is
you want to
where,
do a reading? Because you read better on the
yes, I'll
podcast than I do.
read. I'll read.
Let me find it real quick.
It's at the very end, no?
Yeah.
This is where I am my mother. And I am everyone's mom that comes in the middle of a show and is like, what's going on?
Who's that?
That's how I feel. Oh, I found it. It's all in italics. So,
My favorite like mom thing is always the like you're watching the movie at the same time and they're like, who's that? And a new character who just showed up and you're like, I don't know.
yeah,
I am watching it at the same time as you.
and I remember doing that. It was like a girl in high school. I had some girls over and we were watching a movie, and um, and I did that. I didn't just walk. I didn't just walk in either. Like I was just like, "What's going on?" Da, 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 da. And then my friend Winter was like, all pertinent information is contained within the film." She said it like she didn't say it that roughly, but she was just like, all pertinent information is contained within the film. Like that,
like a flight attendant, like
yeah.
You will find the exits.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Okay, here we go. So
hold on, sorry, real quick.
Yes.
It's long, but I think just go and read through the whole thing.
Is it long?
So we've got the 2 paragraphs here, and then on the next page, there's the very end.
The very end. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so page 610. From the desperation of golden crowns and born of mortal flesh, a great primal power rises as the heir to the lands and the seas, to the skies and all the realms, a shadow in the ember, a light in the flame, to become a fire in the flesh. When the stars fall from the night, the great mountains crumble into the seas, and old bones raise their swords beside the gods. The false one will be stripped from glory until 2 born of the same misdeeds, born of the same great and primal power in the mortal realm. A first daughter, with blood full of fire, fated for the once promised king, and the second daughter, with blood full of ash and ice, the other half of the future king. Together they will remake the realms as they usher in the end. And so it will be okay.
Sorry. So okay, I realized that it'd be easier if we go because they say that in the book that the prophecies are given in 3s separately. I think this one. So Colas has his opinions on what he thinks. He thinks that Sera is talked about in the final verse. I don't think that's true. I think Sera is in this verse. She is the great primal power that rises of mortal flesh.
Yeah.
And then I think that when stars fall from the night, the great mountains crumble, that line is about the war that's going to happen in book 3. So we haven't really seen that come to pass yet.
Well, and that, real quick, that's the diamond in the mountains. No?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially so like during the big battle, right before she gets taken, she talks about the way that like she can't even see the stars in the sky because of like the primal essence that is like coming around. So I think it's probably alluding to that as well, the way that like when primals and gods fight, that becomes overpowering. So then it says, let's see here. The false one will be stripped from glory, him, obviously, and he agrees with that, until 2 born of the same misdeeds, born of the same great and primal power in the mortal realm. That's the twins. That is her children, Malik and
and Malik. Malik and Melek.
No, the Malik was Castiel's brother.
Yeah.
Malek is.
Oh, I know. There's another one.
His actual brother's name. Okay, so
yeah,
the one that we thought was Poppy's. Yes, the one that we thought was Poppy's dad, but was actually not. But the one that was with Isbeth, who was actually in love with Isbeth.
Yeah,
because she took. No, Malik was the one that we thought was her dad. I don't. Okay, so the twins.
Yeah,
her father and uncle, Poppy's father and uncle. Let's see here.
Oh,
So
is
the
the
first daughter.
guy in the cat in the cage.
Yes, so the cat in the cage was her dad, and then
And
the one
then
that
Malik.
and then Malik, yes.
Yes.
Was it
Okay. We got it.
Solus?
Might have been. Solus. That sounds
Okay.
right. Yeah. Good
Nope, that's the
job.
town. That's the city.
God damn it. Well, I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yep. Okay, so the first daughter with blood full of fire, fated for the once promised king, that is Sera.
Okay.
The second daughter with blood full of ash and ice, the other half of the future king. Together they will remake the realms as they usher in the end. That's Poppy.
The other half of the future king, yeah, because of the twins.
Yep.
And yep.
Mm-hmm.
And she is
Okay.
ushering in because she's the the bringer of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Bringer of death and destruction, which is the next line.
Yes.
Shall I continue?
Yes.
And so it will begin with the last chosen blood spilled, the great conspirator birthed from the flesh and fire of the primals will awaken as the harbinger and the bringer of death and destruction to the lands gifted by the gods. Beware, for the end will come from the west to destroy the east and lay waste to all which lies between.
So I would argue that that's probably the war that we're about to see in the actual main like Blood and Ash series.
Yeah. In from Blood and Ash. That war.
Yeah. And so really quick, she did announce the next books.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to get the third one from this series before we get the next one in Blood and Ash. So the third one from this
just like Sera.
Yes, yes. So it's going to come out later next year.
Okay.
And then kind of touching on something real quick before we move on. We get more clarity on what the phrase blood and ash together means.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically from book one, but she's been telling us is that I would argue that Poppy is going to be the primal of life and death together. Because they, from like the very beginning scene, Holland was like, it's never been done. It can't be done. It's impossible.
Right.
And so we're all like, obviously it's going to be done.
Yeah.
But it's not Sera like they think it is. It's not Nyktos.
Yeah.
It's Poppy. Yes.
Okay. For the one born of the blood and the ash, the bearer of two crowns, and the bringer of life to mortal god and dragon, a silver beast with blood seeping from its jaws of fire, bathed in the flames of the brightest moon, to ever be bird, will become one.
So yes, he thinks it's her. He tried to like give her two crowns to like have control over the prophecy, right?
Yeah.
But that's what Isbeth is doing now.
Right.
Because she'll have the crown of Atlantia, Poppy will.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they've killed Isbeth, they've defeated her there. She'll have Macedonia.
Yeah.
So she'll have two crowns.
And then she'll be a god. She'll be the primal life. So then she'll be the god of Elysium as well.
And so he thinks that he's like tricked the prophecy, but I don't think he has.
Yeah.
So what does it say? The one born of blood and ash, the bearer of two crowns, and the bringer of life to mortal, god, and draken. So that's why he needed to see that she could bring back a draken.
Yeah.
I think it's still Poppy.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those things, again, like with the whole, whenever they tell us it can't be done, we know it's about to be done.
There's one more
with
part.
Poppy. Yes, go ahead.
There's one more part in the next page. And the great powers will stumble and fall, some all at once, and they will fall through the fires into a void of nothing. Those left standing will tremble as they kneel, will weaken as they become small, as they become forgotten. For finally, the primal rises, the giver of blood and the bringer of bone, the primal of blood and ash.
I think it's Poppy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially because like Collis and company in this series are thinking so much smaller. They're thinking in their own timeline. Whereas we know that it's actually about to get bigger because they're going to have kids and everything.
So So they talk about the silver beast will become one. Nyktos is the primal of death, ash. And Sera is blood.
I think so.
Which is
because that's
life.
blood. Life is, yeah. And here's another thing. I think, okay, you know how we've been like, Poppy is gonna be able to turn into a fucking dragon. So the line right here where it says, a silver beast with blood seeping from its jaws of fire, bathed in the flames of the brightest moon to ever be birthed, will become one. And so, like, there's this one line when she is having her breakdown after she walks in on him and Vessus, where she talks about like feeling her throat get scaly.
I do remember that.
Yes. And so I was like, it's in Poppy's blood. I think she's going to be able to turn into, she is the dragon in this, the one with blood seeping from its jaws of fire.
It is interesting because Nyktos, she has the conversation with Nyktos about his origin, and he was the first. And so there is this interesting thing because then he's very fatherly towards Jadis and Reaver. And obviously there's other Draken. So other Draken have been able to be made. Like Nyktos isn't the father of all Draken, but he is the father of a lot. And so you know that Draken can be made. And there's a strong emphasis on Draken on this book.
Yes.
And there's also, correct me or tell me when it was that there was a female Draken that had scales.
Orphine?
Yes, Orphine.
Yeah.
And she was like noticing the scales on her skin and stuff. So I'm wondering if something's gonna, like, there's just a lot of like knowledge we're getting about Draken that I think is setting us up for something.
And I wonder to like, is it because Poppy is going to be the primal of life and death? Like, Drakens have blood and ash.
Right.
They are like two type, whatever the phrase is. I don't want to say two spirit. It's not two spirit, but that's what came to mind. But is it the fact that she's going to have both embers that will let her become a dragon, or is it because she is going to be able to transform into a dragon that will allow her to hold both of the embers, you know?
Right.
Because they even fear how powerful the dragons are.
Yeah.
So.
And that was a big part of Colus's plan, was to make all of the beings like under him and have power over them. I do think too that I forgot what I was going to say. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on the prophecy.
Oh, that's what I was going to say, is the embers, they make a big, you can tell when a plot device is like a red herring sometimes, you know, which is, oh, we need to give the embers back to Nyktos. I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
It's not. She's going to be.
That's why I think he's going to send her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And well, because I keep trying to remember, I think this is the problem with like me not taking ample notes when I should be, because I'm like, is Nyktos the god of life or death, the primal of life or death in from Blood and Ash? He's still just the primal of death and common men, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so I don't think he is going to get the embers.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't pay attention, did we? She might have left it ambiguous. I feel like we would.
No, I don't think she did. But I think it's like I think it's just there's so much book. So
there's so many things to like keep track of that you don't keep track of those.
That is why, fun fact, she is releasing like a reference
Yes.
book kind of thing, like a resource book next year as well that I will definitely be buying.
Nice.
So yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Are we ready for?
Um,
Is there anything else we want to talk about before we get into the sex?
the betrayal.
Yes. So, okay. Before I'll start. So I do think that Vasis, I do think I did not believe it. I knew that there was more to it.
Yeah.
And so so then it's hard because then you're like, I don't really want to get upset with her. And then I don't really like believe her when she gets upset. Cause I'm just kind of like, Sera.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause I'm just like, obviously there's more to it than that. Like you can't just like all of a sudden drop everything you ever thought Nyktos was or has said to you or done to you, then to like just be like, oh, well, maybe you just need to have a conversation with him. Like it's one of those like almost miscommunication tropes. Like I'm just kind of like, really?
That was one of the times where I was like, it makes sense that he doesn't love. I mean, like I knew that there had to be something more, but I firmly believed it. And like I don't really care if people are like, oh, you're gullible, but like I mean, like I fell for it. I fell for exactly what she was trying to say, but like
you were pissed.
I was pissed. It gave me the same feeling that like New Moon gave me the first time I read it.
Yeah.
When he leaves, and I was like, he has to come back. Like it has to fix itself.
But you're still like
so
yeah.
It was so like my heart dropped.
Really?
When it happened. Aww. Yeah. Because it was like exactly what she says, where it's like of all the fucking people for this to have happened with, it was Bessus. And that is like, yeah, of course. Like I get it. He's a king. He's gonna sometimes he has to. And he doesn't we know that he doesn't drink from her enough. So obviously there's gotta be an exchange from somewhere. But the fucking fact that it was her. Yeah. Like that's what pissed me off so much too. Is like,
well, and she's such a schemy bitch that I just like for me, I was like something else was going on. And like I don't believe he was right to like keep it from her. I don't think he could tell her.
That too.
That was kind of
that too. Like where I was like, even if there is something going on, he didn't tell her, and he's not telling her, and he's had ample opportunity to tell her, and I'm pissed. Yeah.
And he knows that she doesn't like her. He knows that like Sera has a problem with Bessus and would not like that, and so that's problematic. Yes. Yeah. So I was more pissed at like him. I don't think like
I was furious with
I just knew that there was some reason he had to do that.
Yeah.
But there's another book. I was like, this sounds really familiar. And there's like, I think is it A Touch of Darkness? No, it's okay.
No, maybe because he's got Mint there. Because remember she turns Mint into
I was like, it sounds like really familiar, which is also Hades.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing to kind of also like, okay, so part of the reason that I was like more on like definitely on Sera's side with all her like frustration and anger about this, and I loved her freak out. I was chef's kiss. So usually when we get the like mistaken kiss in a like a movie or a show or whatever, it's like we have watched the conversation happen leading up to that, and it was like they didn't want it, and the kiss was like forced on them, and it like happened at the worst possible time. And if they'd actually like kept listening or watched for 10 more seconds, then they would have realized that like. But this time it's like it stretches out, and we get his hand moving, we get her moving more. Like it's not just this split second of oh my god, this happened. It's like several moments.
Yeah, she's not making a like quick.
Yeah.
What
even I kept thinking like run, get out of there. Yeah. Because I didn't want to keep reading it.
Yeah.
But she just sits there and she just watches it until like Vesa stops drinking from him and pulls away. And then like enough time for her to look, say something. He looks over there. Like, it was all just very it felt like there was very little to misunderstand other than the
Yeah.
very obvious, which is what we like know about the way that he's behaved, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there was no snap judgment. It was very like
It, yeah,
watched. Yeah.
there was mistaken judgment, but there wasn't really like a misunderstanding
Yeah.
about what was actually happening,
Yeah.
which I liked because I do get tired. Like I love the betrayal trope. I hate how much I love it.
Yeah.
Like I like when my heart drops like that.
Yeah.
It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Um, but I do not like when it's just the very like, okay, they obviously just didn't stay long enough to understand what happened in the situation. I like
Yeah.
that it was like she stayed long enough. There was something deeper. It was like a little bit harder to
Yeah.
talk about. There was like a full yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Oh yeah, but I loved the interaction she did have with Vasis, where she just like stabbed her eye.
Yes, yes.
That was
And
so nice.
it the stakes were lower because it's a primal. And so it's like she doesn't have to like deal with this death by stabbing her in the eye, which would be gross and traumatizing, but she still
Yeah.
got to stab her in the eye.
Yeah, she's like, I still want to inflict pain, and I still want
Yeah.
to like
I
that.
want
She
her
wants
to
the
know how angry.
catharsis of like, yeah,
Yeah.
outburst.
Yep. Yeah. And I love that. Yep.
Yeah.
Um I think Nyktos is my favorite now.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you like him more than Castile?
Potentially. I'll have to read another Castile soon to like fully know.
Yeah.
And by soon I mean sometimes in the next like year and a half, I anticipate. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I had messaged y'all as like, okay, Armentrout has got the DS down, the
Yes.
dom
Yes, she
sub
does.
down. She's really exploring it. This is the
Yeah.
first time I've really seen it in like a fleshed out way or
Mhm.
like a obvious way, rather than just like, oh, this like little instance right here. It's like it's actually like a pattern. It's a little bit
It's
more
very
than
actively so.
actively so. Yes, it's like
Mhm.
it's not just like, oh, here's a glimpse of like, because
Yeah.
even A Touch of Darkness had a little bit of it, but
It's not just
not
like
as
random
not
kinky stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
really like it.
Same, same. Oh my God, same. Um, especially like Sera has that kind of moment. I think I don't remember if she's thinking or if she's talking. I think she's talking to him about it
Uh-huh.
because they're kind of like bantering in the underground pool,
Yeah.
which felt like my Sims dream, the number of pools I have
Yes.
built underground in Sims. um, but he's like, do you actually want to be dominated? Like, I don't think you do. Like, you've never done anything. And she's like, yeah, I do. Like, I like to not have
Mm,
control. And I was like, she gets it.
yeah.
She's like the security of being able to submit to somebody that you trust.
Yeah.
That is like that sums up what it means to be like a sub
Yeah.
in the like kink community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So oh my God. So the first sign I was like, we're going there,
Yep.
was I shared it on stories for everyone because I was like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just like, when fucking Hector. Ugh, okay.
Uh,
I know.
does he come back? If does he? Do we see him later?
Can you
Is that
come
one of the
back,
ones
please?
yeah. Because we got Eos
Is he
back.
the redhead one, right?
I don't remember. I think Eos is
Or
the redhead
Rain?
one.
Rain or Hector, one of them is redheaded too. Okay. It's the doors flew open, stopping midway as if invisible servants had caught them before they slammed into the walls. A ripple of icy hot energy tore into the office, first tickling my skin. Daddy Nyktos is not happy, Hector murmured. No, he was not. Like, and I just, I love, because there was a hint of Daddy Nyktos in the last, like,
Yeah, she dropped it then too.
someone had called him Daddy Nyktos, and I think it was
it was Hector then too.
Yeah, it was Hector.
Yeah.
And so hearing it again, I was like, okay, good. It's not going anywhere.
It wasn't just like a one-off. Like,
yeah, it wasn't just like a titillation.
Daddy.
Like, if we know anything about Armentrout, is that she delivers when she hints something.
Yeah.
Something that other authors have not done, which is you'll hint at something and that's it. And you, whatever, go home and imagine
it's not just like a tease. It's like
she's
that's just if she hints about it, we know that she's gonna do it.
Jennifer is like, yeah, she's like, if she says it, it will happen. Or something like it, she will flesh that out. And so I'm so happy about that, because so then there's, oh my God, there's okay, so then there's, it's kind of a shadow of a little bit of Mist and Fury when they go to the Court of Nightmares. And he's like, you're not going to like this. You're like, you're not going to like this, but I have to do this. And then she actually enjoys it. And I was there for it.
I'm wondering how often that must happen in romance. Like, I imagine that's probably something that's really common in like mafia romance.
Not really.
Have you read a lot? Okay.
A little bit.
That's fair. That's fair.
Probably.
I've read a couple. Yeah.
You have? Okay.
Yeah.
I've read a couple, and there is this, I mean, maybe, but there is something interesting. These scenes, the Mist and Fury in this one, is that it actually takes quite a lot of setup to do it successfully. There has to already be trust. There has to be already like history. Mafia romance doesn't really give you that. And so
that's fair. They're mafia romance pay you shorter.
Yeah, mafia romance, it is a novelty. Like it's like there's this thing that's happening and you just have to go with it. And there's not a lot of like good setup, or like you don't have like the trust and all of that. You just kind of are like, it's fantasy in that regard. And then this one, you're like, no, like we have to establish that relationship. We have to like feel safe. We have to know that this is for a good cause. Yes, we have to know that we're doing this for a cause, and that like our enemies are the same. Shit like that. So I do feel like these are the only two scenes that I've read and that have done it that well. Another element to this scene that I liked, which is not in Mist and Fury, is that it's in his office at a desk. And that is a huge, like Armentrout, Jen, like it is just like, that is like a very classic, like Dom sub thing that is just like so cutely weaved in.
She's managed to do it in like a high fantasy.
Yes.
Like emphasis on fantasy, like a heavy fantasy book.
Yeah.
Where like we've had offices before. In fact, we've been to his office before. We've been to other offices before in the universe. Like, okay, that's cool. It's got offices. And this time it was like, oh, I see why we had that in there. It was all for this one moment.
It is. And it was set up really well, because in the last book, everything was very much about rules. And he like didn't want her to leave. He didn't want her to do this. And which we weren't sure about, because it wasn't like we didn't really know what was going on in the world yet. And like, you know, and we were just kind of like, that's kind of weird. Daddy Nyktos, haha. This time it was kind of like, okay, you kind of get to know who he is and what's going on in like the greater scale of things. She has like more power. She's understanding where that's coming from. And then she's like, he still doesn't want her to go anywhere. And now you understand why.
Yep.
And she's like, so can I just stay in your office then? Like if I can go anywhere. And I just love that, because it's so bratty. And it's
yes.
so good. Like,
Okay, so that was another thing, because it was very, very like in the first book, we're like, yeah, we love the rules and Daddy Nyktos, but also from a very like plot character standpoint, why are you actually like, what
Yeah,
are you doing?
exactly.
But in professional, like, or not professional, but like in affectionate Dom manner,
Mm-hmm.
he sees where she is and he meets her there.
Yes.
So instead of saying that she can't go anywhere, he's like, you just have to have somebody with you.
Yeah.
And so he's still ensuring her safety while like meeting her halfway based on her own needs, because it's not just like it's not a, I don't like being stuck in my room all day and I'm a brat. It's a, I don't want to feel imprisoned
Yes.
like she had been before. And that is far different. And he's respecting that need and those
Mm-hmm.
boundaries that she's setting up,
Yeah.
which is exactly what a Dom is supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a good scene. Definitely want to
But
read that again.
what is the one thing that we were both so happy to get this time around?
I mean, I think you were a bit more happy about it, but
I, I was.
I was excited that I was excited. Yes.
Yeah. I think because like
It's the anal.
it is the anal, yes. It's because like between this and Moss, which we've kind of talked about them being these like, they're just so quintessential to this genre now, this fantasy romance genre,
Yeah.
specifically like smutty
Yeah.
romance. And so the fact that she would do that, especially after all of the flack that she got for the joining, which we
Yes.
know on this podcast we are pro joining.
Yes. Pro polyamory.
I love that for her. Like I love
Yeah.
that she would just be like, fuck you, this is what I want to put in my book.
Yeah.
Because we want it.
It's so funny to me that it's like such an issue.
It is, because like what do you
And like
expect?
and like we spoke on the podcast with Molly.
Yes, which you guys will see next week.
Yes. Well, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was they had already listened to it. No. Is that you have fucking rape in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
We can't have butt sex. Like, come on.
We can't have threesome and butt sex, but you guys can have like rape and it's not
and
even
non-consensual,
like,
yeah.
Yeah. And like I thought about this later because one of the big issues that I had, or I guess I should say a big issue that I had with like Guild was actually that I had no idea that rape scene was coming in.
Yeah.
And generally I don't consider myself to be, because like I have friends who will like research things before reading or seeing them to make sure that they know, because they can't engage with that.
Yeah.
And it was so jarring for me as somebody who doesn't consider myself to like be in that boat.
Yeah.
But it just like, I mean, we've read about the book, and I mean, I guess, I don't know, maybe I could have read further, but I also don't want to like victim blame myself for not knowing that it was there. Like it shouldn't have to be something I have to dig for to see about.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you know what? Occasionally I want to read about butt sex and threesomes, and it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, we got it. And what was that scene? The pool.
That was the pool scene. That was the official start of their like their like DS dynamic.
Which sounds a little familiar, doesn't it?
It does. Okay. Speaking of which, unrelated, more of just a question. So the pool that they found to try to find Delphi, I was like, is that the pool?
The cave?
The cave. Because it also seems like borders are about to change and certain areas are going to open up. Because I feel like they mentioned someplace within Elysium that in Blood and Ash is actually mortal realm now.
Right.
So I'm curious about that. So sorry, that was just
that's
another thing that
Melissa's
interested in. But I was like, are we about to get pool sex? We didn't, but
it was a nice like reminder.
It was a little throwback.
A little throwback, yeah, to like the cave scene. And I thought of you in that moment. I was like, oh, she's gonna know. She's gonna know.
I got so excited.
Like,
And then it cut to the pool and I was like, they're in the pool, but they weren't fucking.
Yeah. But they were playing and it was cute. Which is I feel like part of that dynamic.
It is. I was just about
like
to say,
the playfulness.
This is the number one thing. It's the
Mhm.
aftercare. Everyone needs
Yes.
different aftercare, and what she needed
Yes.
was to go into a swim. They needed to play a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've read stuff about like I guess like the science behind that, because like so much of kink and like DS dynamic stuff is about like healing other parts
Yes.
of you. And so when you invite that playfulness in afterwards, you're also inviting like I should also preface this by saying like this is all just conjecture. This is just me
This is
just thinking
your
about it, just like
thinking about it from the research that you've gotten. You're no like expert, but yeah.
yeah, not at all. But like connecting that kind of to like healing the inner child,
Yeah.
because so much like research nowadays, and who knows, maybe in 100 years it'll look different, but like so much research nowadays talks about how a majority of our trauma that we feel as adults came from being children.
Hmm.
And so then it would make sense that like in aftercare, engaging in innocent behavior is also essential to that, because it's inviting that like inner child to that space in a way,
And
you know?
and even foreplay, I think too, is like part of that too, because it's the
Part of
accept
like the
part of like the dynamic and the healing
oh
is
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
is like
Because you have
the
to like
acceptance
enter.
of that. Yeah, you have to enter it, and then like the acceptance of like, it's okay, it's okay for me to be a brat, and
Yes.
it's okay to.
Yeah. There's this like ritualistic element to these dynamics. And that sounds so like strange, but like hear me out. So in a very basic anthropological sense, one of the first things we learn in anthropology is like what is a ritual.
Hmm.
And a ritual is when it'll have three phases: the kind of like intro phase, the liminal space where the ritual happens, and then the after space. And I don't
Hmm.
remember the exact words for this, but foreplay qualifies as that intro, that pre-ritual space, and then the liminal space that happens within like the sex, the scene, whatever you're playing out, engaging in. And then the aftercare is post-ritual, when you've
Yeah.
entered. So like a ritual that we like to think of is like a quinceañera,
Hmm.
because the quinceañera itself is the like ritual where you're about to become a woman. It's the liminal space of the party.
Yeah.
Um, you're engaging with like other women, and so afterwards, the beginning you are still a young girl. Afterwards, you are a young woman,
Yeah.
or like a bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, both of them.
Yeah.
Same thing. You enter, you do the ritual, which is
Yeah.
reciting lines, and then afterwards you are an adult, even though they're still
Yeah.
13. But like,
Yeah.
um, and like dynamics, kink scenes, DS stuff can follow that same
Yeah.
track.
Absolutely. Which is,
Yeah.
and what I guess from an anthropological like sense, like
Doing an anthropological reading of our fairy smut.
yes,
Yes.
the purpose of a ritual then
Is to like initiate you into a new phase.
right. So it's to
And it
go
can be you as a person, or it can be like seasonal rituals.
right.
Because like when we get like the literal change of the seasons, you'll do like, we used to do Yule,
Hmm.
which was we have a feast to celebrate the like the harvest, to prepare for the cold of the winter that's to come. And so it is
Hmm.
very like ending of one phase, beginning of the other. And so that's why
Right.
in the actual ritual phase, it's considered liminal, because both of those phases, the beginning and the after, are coexisting. It's all and none.
Very good. Yeah. I love that.
I still got it.
You still got
I don't know.
it.
It's been like 10 years. So maybe somebody's going to come out here and be like, Melissa, you need to read like up to date
Yeah.
anthropological texts, which I probably do. But that was like a very basic, that was kind of established in like the early 1900s, early 20th century.
Right.
Um, and all
Yeah.
cultures do that. That's just like the structure of how we tend to structure our rituals.
Yeah. And I feel like I would argue that kink harbors more of that than non-kink
Yeah.
sex.
Mm-hmm. And that's so like talking about the like essential element of aftercare, or
Mm-hmm.
of that post ritual space, because you have to, what it officially does is end the liminal space. It
Right.
ends the ritual.
Yeah.
So if you don't engage in that aftercare, because like sometimes earlier on, he would leave right after sex, or he'd be like, I can't do this, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then he would just like leave. Those thankfully also weren't moments of like kink scenes, kink
Yeah.
engagement. But in this one, where it was firmly established, is when we get that aftercare, we get that play afterwards.
Yeah.
And that was like essential to rounding out that
Yeah.
sequence.
And she initiated it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She was the one that was like, so I can't go anywhere. And she was like pushing his buttons and like
Mm-hmm.
putting his tits in her face and like that kind of thing.
Her tits in his face.
I didn't say that. Her tits in his
You
face?
said his and hers, but that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't mind having his tits in my face either.
Me neither.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was good. But so yeah, the that scene though, I listened to it and then I had to read it. The one where they fuck on the table.
Yes, I read it and it got me so excited. And that was the last note that I took because I was so excited. Not the last, but for a while. Because then just a few chapters ahead is when the betrayal happens. And I shit you not. So I have the Kindle. So I was like, I had it set so I could see how long for the chapter. And then occasionally I would jump ahead to see how long for the book. Or like I would like click the setting to see how long for the book. Shortly before that scene, it was something like 7.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And this was last night. And I was like, this is fine because I'll read for most of the night. An hour later, it jumped to 4.5 hours. Because after the betrayal, I read so fast because it had me so panicked.
Yeah.
That I read like 2.5 hours worth of the book in about an hour.
Wow.
Yes. Which I didn't even realize I was doing. Like I felt like after I came out, I was like blinking. I felt like I was in a haze.
Yeah.
But it got me to that same place that New Moon got me all those years ago. I had that high again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God.
It felt good.
But then he goes down on her a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the other thing too.
The bath sex. I totally forgot about the bath sex. It's like he realizes that she's too scared to use her own bathing chambers. And so he invites her to use his and she falls asleep. And he comes in a few minutes later and she's like coming on to him. And he gets into the bathtub fully clothed and has her sitting on the ledge and just eats her and then bites her cootie. I don't know what part he bit. So I don't know if he bit her like the like top labia. Or if he bit like in
major.
Like, yeah, not necessarily like the crotch, like part of the crotch. I don't need to be directing this in the video. Like, I don't know if it was like part of the crotch or if it was just like was it here or was it like here, you know?
Are you talking about like the major and minor?
No. I'm talking about where he bit her. I know the difference between those because like there's the labia majora.
Oh, the fupa or the
yeah, more like did he bite the fupa or did he bite?
Okay.
We'll go full jargon and then also just full colloquial. So did he bite the labia majora or did he bite her fupa?
Yes.
But yeah, so that was a part when he bit her crotch.
Or the mons pubis. It's the
what?
The technical term for the fupa is the mons.
Oh.
Yes.
I was like, I don't think my brain heard what you said, but it did.
It came to me just now.
That's fair. Yeah. But that was when they also it healed really fast and she's like, oh my God, I'm ascending.
Oh my God, I'm ascending.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh God, no, yeah, that was wonderful. And she was like, he's never been with anyone, but he knows how to be with me.
Yeah. Yep. And then but that was also going back to the betrayal. That was why I thought that it was because she even had that line where she's like, I was so stupid to think that this was his first time.
Right.
Because even we've had those thoughts where we talked about that, where it's like, he's not.
He can't be.
This doesn't make sense. But I guess now I believe him.
Yeah. Okay, then there's, oh God. It was right after the dominated part. pool scene on the table. And they're like going out. They're like leaving to go somewhere.
Yeah.
The plot leaves me. But they go out into like the stables. And he just like grabs her and fucks her like against a wall or something. Or I love that just like behind me. Like behind. Doesn't have to be like
Yes.
butt always,
Yes.
but like that. And then just like I think he like holds her like front. Like I read that a couple of times. Just like
Where is that? I don't
quickie.
remember them fucking in the.
It's not like the stables, but it's like kind of almost public.
Okay, hold
Like
on. I'm
there's
trying to
people around, and she's like, I have it bookmarked. I'll kind of.
Okay.
See if I can find it.
Yeah, if you find it, let me know, and then I will jump there too.
Oh, when they fight, there's that part too.
Yeah.
Was that just
I love
before the
that.
table? See, it all blurs together.
Kind of.
Oh God. This is it. Chapter 26.
Okay.
Left the palace the following morning, heading for the stables. As my new iron-hued cloak trimmed, nibbling on my lower lip, I glanced up at Nyktos. At some point yesterday, she's like checking him out. Because they just like finished, and that was the moment when she was like, that was different sex. You know? He goes, what are you thinking about? And she goes, stop reading my emotions. And he's like, I'm not. Sure doesn't sound. And then he like shadow stepped, grasped her arms, had her against the wall of the stables. The entire front of his body was pressed to mine. Then his mouth was on mine. So he's behind her and has her pressed,
pulled. Yep.
Pulled, and then it is like kissing her. And then Nyktos kissed me, and he kissed me like his very life depended on it. And this was one of those moments. There was no checked or banked passion. He went for it. Lips, tongue, fangs, scraping, teasing. My knees felt weak. You were projecting, he whispered. Oh yeah. And then he whispered against my throbbing lips, desire. Smoky and thick. If you keep thinking about whatever you have in your mind, we'll never make it to the veil. And she goes, that wouldn't be responsible of us. Absolutely not, he agreed. So behave.
So I thought you meant they like fucked. So I was like, I don't remember them doing that. So
I think they did.
Sex. No. They pull apart.
Oh, okay. Well, they might as well have.
You wanted them so bad that, yeah.
Yeah, they almost do. But there's like people around. So, you know me. I love a good public sex.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't sex.
It was close enough.
Yeah.
But the carriage definitely was.
Oh yeah, the carriage. Okay. Also harkening back. I love all of these mirroring. I love that. I thought about you in that too, the carriage. I think she was
the first
giving
time
the
she
fans
steps into the carriage. Yeah. I was like,
here we go.
We could do it again.
Yeah, that was hot.
But I also like that she doesn't really give it to us exactly the same way because like we can never have that same high twice.
Yeah, and we don't want to read the same scene, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a good book.
It was a good book. It's my favorite of the series, of this universe, of like the FBA universe, potentially like top 3 from the podcast.
Yeah. So what are the other 2 tops?
Once and Future Witches.
Yes.
Still. I'm thinking just of like fantasy that we've read here. So not the like classics, but
You did really like Crescent City, House of Earth and
Yeah.
Blood.
It's between Crescent City and Darker Shade of Magic.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember
Because
that,
like the aesthetic of that book still lingers so aggressively.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are mine?
And that's not to say that the others that we've read I don't like, because I like, honestly, we haven't read a bad book on the podcast.
No.
But like those are the ones where I'm like, I could potentially read that again in a year if I wanted. Like if we had the time.
Yeah.
That was one that I wouldn't mind rereading in like a year.
Yeah. I would I don't know if this is gonna be a popular opinion, but I think I liked Shadow and the Ember a little bit more as a book to reread.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of plot in this that my brain was just like I felt so anxious about keeping track of things that I didn't feel like I could like really like settle in. Whereas a Shadow and the Ember, I felt like everything was so new and it was a little bit more, I'm more kind of like I don't know if plot is the right word, but this
setting.
Is it the thing that you like, which is like the like kind of like the politics and the plot and like what's going to happen and the legacy and like the theories and stuff like that. Like all of that it isn't that I don't like it and I don't think it serves a purpose, but I'm not as like excited about delving into. And so that can kind of slow me down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like that was a big one for Crown of Gilded Bones. There was a lot of it in that book that kind of like slowed me down a little bit. The War of Two Queens. That one was really good. I like a lot more like character development type thing, which we
like
did
action.
Yeah, and which we did get in this book. And I think I just need to like reread it. I feel like it's still really fresh too. Like
It is.
Like maybe I'll like think about this a lot more, but I just like another thing too is when there is a lot of sex, like, because you think about the last book and I can count on my fingers the sex scenes and they were all divine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know exactly what happened in them. Whereas this one, I'm like, I think after talking about it now, I'm like, okay, yeah, like there was that one and then there was that one, there was this one, This is a little bit more
There
succinct.
were way more in this one.
Way more. Like there's ones we didn't even talk about. Like
about partway through, I wish that I'd had the paperback so that I could mark it like I did with King of Battle and Blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like have every sex scene, because it would have been just as rifled with little red tabs. Yeah. I think it's like I like dialogue, and I think we like action more because a lot of the action in this one happened in the dialogue.
I do like dialogue, but
I'm talking about like in terms of like remembering things. Like you remember more things that actually happened,
right?
Whereas I remember more things that are said,
right? Oh yeah,
and I think that's where we differentiate a little bit in terms of like what sticks out to us.
Yeah.
So like in a book like this where a lot more of it happened in like meetings where they're trying to gauge what to do next, and there's like kind of like the court intrigue of like the way that they met like Atez, and the way that like things happened with Vessus, the way that things play out happens more in like person to person interactions than in like fights to the death and shit like that. Which isn't just like, not that you only like fights to the death, but that like there wasn't like they talk for like 2/3 of the book about going to Ireland to find Delphi,
and I don't remember that.
Yeah, like exactly. But you remember them going to Ireland.
Yeah. I remember them going, and I'm like, but I don't know why when they're doing it. Like it was fucking Guild all over again, where I was just like, okay, she's leaving with Nyktos to go somewhere. This isn't even Ireland. This is like before that.
The pool, yeah.
Yeah, the pool. And they're like going, and I'm like, I don't really know why. And I'm hoping that they're gonna like say it again, or like it'll become known. But like I'm so don't know. Maybe there's like something off. Sometimes I worry about that. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I don't.
It's just the way we think individually.
Yeah. I like to think that I pick up on other things a lot more, but I don't know if that's true.
Well, in books like in books like this, it's just so much harder to dictate that because so much of the book is within the dialogue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you keep me together.
We do it to each other. So,
and I do think like ACOTAR specifically is a better example of like kind of the books that I really grab onto a lot easier because it's because the plot is very loose.
Well, it's also like it is more action driven, so there's like very tangible events that happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. I guess maybe that's what you were trying to say, which is like when it's more court intrigue and you just have like a bunch of little scenes where people talk and you kind of have to like pull it all together. It's a lot harder for my brain to kind of build that. But when you have a succinct event that like gives everything that it gives the plot and characters and things meaning within that succinct event, it's a lot more easier for me to kind of like create it in my brain of like what's going on.
Whereas like when they're talking about the plans, I can see the plans in my head.
And I'm like, I don't know it until it happens.
Yeah. So like I can see the plan. So when they were talking about going to Ireland, I was getting annoyed because I didn't know like in the map of their world that I have in my head, I wasn't sure where it was. Right. And so I had to like piece that together. So then like in my head, it would make sense.
Yeah.
So our brains just work slightly differently that way.
Yeah. No, it's funny. Yeah. No, but that actually helps me understand myself now of like, it kind of has to happen in a context of an event or something.
Yeah, an event itself. Yeah.
Which could be a scene of two people talking, but it has to kind of have that gravity event, right?
So like the scene when they talk after the coronation and she confesses that she knows what happens.
Yes. I remember that.
Because that's like a heavy scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And or the scene where she is asking to see rain and it's kind of drawn out and you know something's going to happen because it's a build. It's like a arc in that scene itself. Like, you know, she's not just chatting with someone. She knows she's going to learn something and it's going to be big. And it was. So. Yeah. Well, the next book is coming out late next year.
Yep.
Final thoughts.
According to current dates.
Yeah. Before we get the second and the next in From Blood and Ash.
Yeah. Man. Which makes me think that we have to see this play out before we can see what's actually going to happen next in the Blood and Ash story. Yeah, that's what Sera's doing with ACOTAR and Crescent City. So interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, last thoughts. It was really good. I fucking love Sera. Yeah, same.
I just love her. And I love that she was like, she's able to like talk back to people. Like there was like her, I feel like, you know, some authors like really love fun banter and that's just like their thing. Like I think Leigh Bardugo does that really well. She's like really known for it. But that's like a really distinct character thing of Sera, which I like.
Yeah. I love Sera so much.
Sera's awesome.
My final thoughts. It's just like it's like a big yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yepers.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Approved. Yep.
We're excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, this whole universe that Armentrout has created is just, it's divine. It's beautiful.
It is, and it's really building because I was like, the universe that we saw in like From Blood and Ash was like very like the landscape was like really
Mhm.
cool. This feels a bit more court.
Mhm.
But I like that the world is becoming bigger, and I'm like, oh no, yeah, she's got this fucking
Yeah.
figured out.
Yes.
She knows
And it feels
exactly what she's doing.
like at the very beginning we talked about how like we get to see through Poppy without
Mhm.
info dumping because she just slowly asks questions and like we get to
Yeah.
engage with a little bit more every time. But then kind of like stepping out for a second out of like if we're in the book, that's what we're experiencing. But then stepping out and just like being a reader who has read every one of these books so far, that is what she has done is like over time she has just grown this universe to be so much bigger.
Yeah.
And it's just so well done. It's so perfectly
Hmm.
structured.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Well, cool.
Yes.
The Light and the Flame, the much anticipated book. Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Yes.
We need time to reread these.
I know. I know.
Because I
I'm
kind of
gonna
felt myself like, oh, I should have like read A Shadow on the Ember first. Like,
I'm kind of thinking I'm probably just gonna end up getting the audiobook still and just having it like play while I work.
yeah.
Because I've read it, so I can just like whenever it's an important chapter, I'll just pause my work and listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yes, exactly. Okay. So
yeah,
next week, what are we reading?
that's a good fucking question.
Yeah. I think we're reading A Kingdom of the Wicked. No, next week is Molly Tolis. Okay. Next
Yeah.
week
Yes. Yeah,
is
that's why we're not reading anything.
we're not reading anything because we are having the bibliophile blonde on,
Yes.
and we actually recorded it yesterday, and it was so much fucking fun. I think
Yeah.
we talked for like 4 hours.
Oh God, yeah. It was amazing. So
It was. So we're excited. She has written and published and read a lot of fantasy romance, and so
yes.
we pick her brain
Yes.
about that. We talk about favorite characters, Nesta being part of that.
Yes, we are pro Nesta. We're pro joining. We are pro Nesta. We are
Yeah.
obviously very controversial on this podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so controversial. Yeah. We just like good things. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. But we also talk about like TV. She is also a big
Yes.
fan of Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. So
Yeah.
some of the things that we've talked about in the past, we talk about writing, publishing, and then we talk about literally everything else because it turns out that we are all neurodivergent
Yeah.
and we're all just kind of like we go on so many tangents. And so I'm going to try to skim it down as barely little as possible.
Yeah. Because there's so much good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. It might
Yeah.
be a long one, but
Yeah.
I'm fine with that if you're fine with that.
I'm debating on if we need to, like, I haven't really fully looked at it yet, but if we need to split it into 2 weeks, because we did like recorded content, I think we have close to like how long is it?
I don't know.
I think it's close to like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy to do it as 2 weeks though.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, join us next week where we have Molly Tolis on.
Yeah.
Until that, and then I think after that we will be reading A Kingdom of the Cursed.
Yes.
Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Okay, until next week, happy reading.
Happy reading. Bye.
Bye.